This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the iPhone 4S on AT&T. Today's launch day, and we've got the AT&T one here for you today, and we'll be doing the Verizon one in a couple of days too, though of course they're going to be remarkably similar. If you take a look at the device, it looks awful familiar because it uses the exact same casing as the iPhone 4. Doesn't mean it's not a beautiful phone, because it certainly is. Got that nice metal around the edges here, your speaker hole, your sync port, SIM card slot. See the new antenna design here. This is like the Verizon one. It's a two-piece antenna for better reception. There's your power button, the 3.5mm jack for your headset, volume controls. That's it. And on the back here we have the 8-megapixel camera with an LED flash, and there's a front-facing camera as well. Now we'll compare it to the iPhone 4 on the left in black here with our senior editor's cute little heart button in the center there, and you can see they are indeed identical other than the antenna design. We have the two notches here, separation of antenna, and this says the single piece design. Otherwise, you're looking at pretty much the same kind of phone. This has the same Retina display that's used on the iPhone 4. That's 960 by 640 pixels, and it's as bright and beautiful and sharp as ever. It's still 3.5 inches diagonally, and we do wish that Apple had gone for something a bit bigger. Nowadays, most super phones have 4.3-inch displays, and 4 inches is kind of a nice compromise between portability, pocketability, and seeing a little bit more on screen, but then again, this is pretty easy to pocket. It weighs just hundredths of an ounce more than the iPhone 4, which means it's still fairly light, but it feels like a weighty piece in your hand. It's heavy in the good way. You feel like you got a good solid piece of technology right here. In terms of speed, it's definitely faster. This uses the new A5 CPU. It's a dual-core CPU, and it's clocked at 800 megahertz, which is plenty fast enough to keep this thing rocking and rolling. And since this is on AT&T, it also gets faster data speeds. It has HSPA plus 14.4 megabytes versus the 7.2 on the iPhone 4. So you're getting roughly double the network speed, and I can tell you right now that the reception on this is very good. You can't always go by bars with Apple, but indeed, when it says it has a pretty strong signal, the speed test results that we've seen, you can see right here. I'll show you the results. And these are the kind of speeds we've been getting. And when I get these higher numbers here, it's been showing 1 bar short of full, just like it's doing right now. So that means it's pulling a pretty good signal, because that's about as fast as you're going to get on 14.4 HSPA Plus on AT&T. That's a network technology that AT&T had been calling 4G. Some people gave them a problem about that, including Apple, who refuses to call anything other than LTE 4G. But nonetheless, this is as fast as several Android phones that AT&T is currently offering that they call 4G that have HSPA plus 14.4. And it's not really performing much differently from HSPA plus 21 megabit phones on AT&T either. And then we'll do a size comparison between the iPhone 4S on the left and the Samsung Galaxy S2. My God, the iPhone looks downright tiny, doesn't it, in comparison? In terms of display, they're both lovely phones. The Samsung only runs at 800 by 480 pixel resolution, but you do get a physically larger display, which is nice. And of course, it has a Super AMOLED Plus display, so you can see it is really eye-popping. The iPhone has a more natural display in terms of colors, but it's really up to what you prefer. And that's the subject of a smackdown that we'll do in a future date. In terms of software, this is running iOS 5 out of the box, the latest operating system, and those who have an iPhone 4 or even a 3GS, you can download that operating system to your phones as well. But there's a lot of improvements here, a lot of things that kind of drove me crazy about the iPhone they've fixed, especially the notifications. They're not as intrusive anymore. You can have banner notifications up top. You have much more control over them, and they're not as disruptive. You also get the new newsstand feature here, which puts basically all your periodicals into this little drawer. So it's really just a New York Times app right there. You can see the load times here are pretty quick. Of course, this one's just trying to sell me issues of Total Guitar Magazine. That's really what it is, but nonetheless, handy organizational feature. You still have all the standard core iOS apps that you're used to, and we've got something new here. We've got reminders as well. I know a lot of people like that. Call quality on the AT&T version of the iPhone 4S is markedly improved over the iPhone 4. In fact, I couldn't use the iPhone 4 between call drop issues and call quality, and this, boy, crystal clear landline sounding calls on both ends. In fact, this would be my go-to phone to make voice calls now. What a nice turnaround. So far it's worked well with Bluetooth headsets and even tested with a Bluetooth car kit. Also, good crystal clear audio and reliable connections. So finally, once again, an iPhone we can recommend for voice calls. In terms of reception, as we mentioned in our data section, you can't always rely on bars, but I would say that the bars are reporting pretty honestly. Reception has been very solid on this in terms of data transfer speeds and obvious improvements in call quality. And as far as antenna gate goes and the grip of death, holding this in any normal fashion, I have not been able to get it to drop bars. Maybe if I wrapped, totally encased both antennas with my hands, might be able to budge it, but unless you're really trying to mess with reception by grabbing this in some funny way, anything short of that, it's just fine. The iPhone 4S has an improved camera. It's not just that there's more megapixels, because those don't always make the biggest difference unless you're outputting to a big screen TV or printing, but it's got a backside illuminated sensor and an f2.4 lens, so it's much better at low light. And of course, it still has the HDR feature built in, so it can deal with stark exposure contrast issues pretty well. And you can see the interface is still pretty much the same. We're used to. We have control for the flash up here, and we have options, which is basically turning grid on and off and whether or not you want to use HDR. You can switch between your front and your back cameras right there, and you can switch to video mode here. And the iPhone 4 took very nice photographs, especially for a 5 megapixel. And it's a hard act to beat, and this takes slightly better pictures. Certainly, there's more pixels there, it's a bit more sharp, but where we really notice the improvement is in video. Videos taken with the camera are markedly better. There's still some motion blur if you're panning the camera around, is what I mean. Not if your subject's moving, that's not a problem. But if you're panning the camera around, you'll see a bit of jerkiness, but it's still pretty good. We'll check out a video that we shot. So here we are in the photo application. You can see some of the app photos, just how they look on the device, which is pretty good. And here we'll take a look at an exciting video that we shot of the Fry's parking lot. Very nice. It's a video taken with the new iPhone 4S. And you can hear the video recording quality is good there too. So for shutterbugs, there's definitely an improvement here over the iPhone 4, a big improvement over the iPhone 3 or 3GS for those of you who have that. Next, we're going to check out Siri, which is the voice command. And to call it voice command is really belittling it. It's actually using a heck of a lot of artificial intelligence. It was developed by DARPA, the military folks, long ago, privatized, and then bought by Apple. And then we'll test out Siri, which is undoubtedly one of the hottest features, and it's only available on the iPhone 4S. Apple says that's because this has the computational speed to deal with that. Whatever the reason, that's the deal. If you want this, you're going to have to get an iPhone 4S. Press and hold the center button to activate it. What's the meaning of life?
I can't answer that now, but give me some time to write a very long play in which nothing happens.
How do I make ramen noodles?
Let me check that for you. I don't know that. Would you like to search the web for it?
So there it is. It'll search the web. You actually have to tap the button here. You can't tell it. Yes, search the web.
Searching the web for how do I make ramen noodles.
And it will give me Google results for how to make ramen noodles. And there we go with several ideas on how to make ramen noodles. How about something maybe a little bit more purposeful than that? Send an email to John Doe to remember the milk.
What would you like your email to say?
Please bring some milk.
Here's the email message to John Doe.
Pretty handy.
Ready to send it?
Cancel.
Okay then, I won't send it.
In terms of speed, the iPhone with the dual-core A5 processor certainly is faster, and it shows up in things like the web browser. You can see right here we're using the browser mark test, and this scored 88,416, which is twice as fast as our iPhone 4 and about 3 times as fast as the iPhone 3GS. That's very nice. Likewise, in the SunSpider JavaScript test, this scored 2246, which is significantly faster than the iPhone 4, lots faster than the iPhone 3GS, and that's as fast as the fastest Android phones. So combining the faster CPU speed with the much faster data connection that you've got on this phone, if you're using AT&T that is, or any GSM carrier, you're going to have a much better web browsing experience, and also for streaming content as well. And we're going to check out the iTunes Movie Trailers site to give that a test. And right now we're on AT&T's network. We are not using Wi-Fi. And we will play the trailer.
For 5 winters now, you have hidden from the world.
Really sharp, excellent quality, smooth.
I will make you a warrior again.
Not a drop. Nice.
How? MI7 wants you on the first flight, but
So if you've got an older iPhone and you've always been turning on Wi-Fi because your 3G connection isn't sufficient to give you a good streaming experience, that won't be the case with this, assuming you have reasonably good coverage. Now, gaming has never really been a problem on the iPhone 4, but with the A5 CPU, the next generation of games that are probably even more impressive are going to run just fine on this. You can see right now we've got Need for Speed Hot Pursuit starting up. So, plays beautifully, no problem there. iPhone does get a bit toasty on the back and on the edges when you're playing games like Need for Speed, and that's also true of the iPhone 4 as well. Take a look at the new notification system here. If you swipe down, doesn't that remind you of Android and some other platforms? You can see right here we don't have any notifications other than updates for our weather, and right now you've got a running stock ticker going here as well, but you can have other notifications up here in the banner about new emails and that kind of thing. Or you can go for the old-fashioned big old blobo in the middle of the screen if you want under notifications. That's all new with iOS 5. For example, for phone alerts, you can choose your alert style right here. No alert, banners, big old alert in the center just like you used to have. Icons, and whether or not you want to see that in the lock screen. Part of the new notification center in iOS 5. The same WebKit browser that you're used to seeing on iPhones, it's been tweaked a bit, and we now have support for reading lists right here. You still have the selector for multiple windows. There's still no Adobe Flash, sorry about that. And you can see now we have the reading list just like we have on Lion. And I can look at all the things that I've put in my reading list. And this can also sync bookmarks and reading list with iCloud. So if you're using a Mac or another device or you're using iCloud services, you can keep them in sync. Likewise, you can sync your contacts, your calendar items, your notes, all that kind of stuff too in the cloud. So you're not tied to the USB cord the way you used to be with an iPhone, which is fantastic. In terms of browser load times and rendering speeds, we'll load our own site and take a look here. Definitely faster than the iPhone 4. And as usual, you can scroll around while loading the page. Pinch zoom works just as well as ever. So that's the new iPhone 4S. It's available now. It's $200 for the 16 gig version, $300 for the 32 gig version, and $400 for the 64 gig version. That's a new capacity that's available now. Those prices are with contract. They're considerably more expensive without contract, of course. And in the US, they're available on AT&T, Sprint, and Verizon. Nice to have so many choices. Definitely a lot of improvements here that are in the iOS 5 layer, and brings it up to speed and up to snuff to compete with Android phones, which have had some very advanced notifications and other features. It's good to see Apple staying very competitive. And if you got an iPhone 3G or 3GS, the speed, the camera, the whole experience on this phone, yeah, it's definitely worth the upgrade if you're ready for an upgrade on your contract. If you have an iPhone 4, well, it's a tougher decision, but you do get the better camera and a lot more speed. And one big selling point, of course, is Siri, the voice-activated digital assistant, which is actually quite effective in automating a lot of tasks. You don't have to fiddle with your phone as much. Very important if you're doing something like walking in a crowd or driving or doing anything where you really don't want to be staring and poking at your phone so much. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review of the iPhone 4S.